the Focusrite Sapphire range. The only interfaces with Focusrite pre's. Focusrite, the interface company.
It's Sunday morning, it's the AES show in New York, and we're here with Slate, who's going to show us some new drum replacement software. Now, the trouble with drum replacement software that I've always found is that the stuff is very susceptible to spill. It's very difficult to separate things in a real live situation where you've recorded the drums using a conventional mic setup. But apparently, you can fix all that.
We can. Trigger has been in the works for about 2 years now, and the idea is to tackle the problems that Paul just told you about, which is that you want a drum replacement program to do exactly what you need, which is to replace drums, to do it with sample accuracy, and to not trigger things like spill. So for instance, if you're on a snare drum, you don't want it to be triggering the kick drum or the hi-hat. So Trigger has a very specialized triggering algorithm that is very frequency and transient dependent. So when you want to put it on the snare track and trigger a snare, it's only going to trigger the snare. It'll do it quite well, and it'll do it with sample accuracy. When you want to put it on the kick drum, it'll just trigger that kick drum. It won't trigger any leakage, and it will keep every single kick sample with phase accuracy among the original kick. So let's take a look at the interface real quick. So Trigger has 6 layers of sampling. What that means is you have independent control of, let's say, a close snare mic, stereo overheads, stereo room, and then you have extra slots. Let's say you want to put another close snare sample up. You can have another room sample up. So you've got 6 independent layers to trigger. So one snare can trigger 6 different samples. So again, that could be any combination of overheads, room mics, other snare samples. You can put anything you wanted. Every single layer has its own volume, pan, tune, pre-delay, sustain, phase, mute, and solo.
So what you're describing really is a dual function plugin. It's a drum replacer, but it's also a drum instrument.
It is, in a way, absolutely. Because, I mean, for instance, what I'm about to show you is we recorded a little drum session in the Slate Studio storage closet, which is not a pretty place to be. It's very small. There is a slight rodent problem, and we stuck a poor drummer in there, and we stuck a few old beat-up mics in there, and we've pretty much got a pretty horrible sounding kit. What we're going to do is we're going to make that kit sound like it was recorded in a very expensive, high-quality studio with high-quality mics and beautiful ambiances. So let's try that right now. First, I'm going to play for you the original tracks. Not a bad sound for a rodent-infested storage closet, but let's make it a little better. So what we're going to do is we're going to put Trigger on the snare mic. And you can see on this sample is a Stephen Slate drum sample, snare 21. Trigger also will come with Stephen Slate drums, which is a sample pack that has been around for a few years that we've had some success with here. So snare 21. I'm also going to be triggering snare 21's NRG room mic samples, and also snare 21's SSD room mic samples. SSD room samples were recorded in a big, huge warehouse with lots of compression, and they sound really big and they sound great. So let's first put that on, and then we're going to go to the kick mic, and we're going to put Trigger on the kick sample. Now, kicks are very important when you're triggering, because if they are the slightest bit off, your whole low end will disappear, because kick drums have to be completely phase accurate when you're triggering them. So that is one thing we took a lot of time to make sure that Trigger can trigger in a phase accurate manner, so that the transients completely align with each other. So on the kick, we're going to put the Kick 9, also known as the AC kick, and again, we're going to also load Kick 9's NRG room mics and SSD room mics. Let's take a listen to that storage closet room now. Quite a bit of an improvement, I'd say. Now, let's try something pretty interesting that you would never want to do with most drum replacement plugins. We're going to go to a very complex snare fill. So let's find one right here. So I'm going to solo the real snare drum here. And let's take a listen to this fill right here. Here's what it sounds like just alone, without trigger. One more time just to hear the complexity of that fill. It's a very complex dynamic fill. Now we're going to put trigger on. We're not going to do any special tweakings. We're not going to sit there and mess with it. We're just going to put trigger on with that fill, and let's see how trigger handles that very dynamic, complex snare fill. One more time, and this time we're going to watch it. So you can see trigger handles every single velocity, every single ghost note. It triggers the absolute proper velocity of the samples. It follows the dynamic response perfectly using the new AMG anti-machine gun mode, which is a very advanced algorithm that humanizes the samples so that they play in a very natural manner. Trigger will be available in Q1 2010. It'll have an introductory price of $149 for the EX pack, which will come with 10 kicks, 10 snares, and 2 sets of toms. And there will also be a platinum pack for $329, which will come with the whole Stephen Slate drum collection.
Sounds great. I can't wait to try it. Thanks, Stephen.
Thanks so much, Paul.